Okay, it is 7 p.m. So we will go ahead and call the March 22nd, 2021 regular meeting of the Meridian Township Planning Commission to order. First on our agenda this evening is public remarks. There will be 3 opportunities for public remarks tonight, right now at the end of the meeting, and also during the public hearing, which is currently on our agenda as item 6A. For the first and last public remarks, you may speak on any topic. If you would like to speak about the Mr. R's driving school public hearing, you can do that at any time, but when the public hearing comes up, you may only speak about that topic. Remarks must be limited to 3 minutes, and for those who are interested in speaking, and if you are in our Zoom meeting, you can use the raise hand feature. Or if you are watching or listening at home, you can give us a phone call at 517-349-1232. When you do begin, please give us your name and address for the public record. And with that said, we will go ahead and open the floor for public remarks. Don't see anyone raising their hand in the Zoom meeting. Director Geeby, do we have anyone on the phone?
There are no telephone calls either, sir.
Very well, thank you. We will go ahead and close public remarks, move on to our next agenda item, which is agenda item number 3, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda tonight? Moved by Commissioner Cordell. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Bloomer. Any comments or changes on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the agenda passes. Thank you. Next up is item 4A, approval of minutes. We have one set of minutes from our March 8th, 2021 regular meeting. We have a motion for the minutes. Moved by Commissioner Trezise. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Snyder. Any comments, changes, or updates to the minutes? Commissioner Cordell.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking at page 2 of the minutes, and I looked for information on the petition that was submitted for rezoning 21020, and the communications, there was a petition. I just thought to make it clear that the petition was for the rezoning and it was in opposition to the rezoning.
Yeah, thanks, Holly. I can make that change.
Okay, sure thing. Thank you.
Okay, any other changes to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of the minutes as amended, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the minutes pass. Thank you very much. Next up is agenda item 5, communications. We have none this evening. Then next is 6A, public hearings. So we come to our first public hearing, which is special use, our only public hearing, special use permit number 21021, Mr. R's driving school to install a driver's education road test course in the parking lot behind the shopping center at 1575 Hazlitt Road. We will open the public hearing at 7:03 p.m. and we'll hand things off, as we always do, to Principal Planner Menser.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm actually getting, sorry about that. We have our applicant here for the special use permit. I see he just emailed me. No, I can't really. All right. So Jason Redouty, if you're out there, I got your email, but I'm not sure how to address your issue with Zoom. So hopefully you get a chance to log in.
Peter, I'll try to get him.
Yeah, thank you for that.
You've got about 5 minutes of Peter's presentation to get him in.
I'll go faster than that, I promise. This is a pretty straightforward one. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen real quick and do the fastest presentation out there.
One Mississippi.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a request from Mr. R's driving school. It's to establish a driver's ed training course in an area behind the shopping center there at the southeast corner of Hazlitt and Marsh. It's called the Shoptown Shopping Center. So as usual, tonight's meeting packets on our meetings tab on the township website. So if any of you that are following along at home want to see the staff the staff report that's in there. Everything I'm talking about is covered in that, and that's on the homepage on the meetings tab. All the application materials for the request are on the township website. And then the format of tonight's public hearing is a brief summary by me, and then presentation from the applicant if we can get him logged in, and then public comment. And as our chair mentioned, that's 3 minutes per person max, and it's on this topic only, on this request. And then planning commission discussion. They may have questions for me. They may have questions for the applicant. They certainly will talk amongst each other. The proposal is an approximate 35-foot by 70-foot area for a driver's ed training course. Any of you that happen to have been behind the Hazlet Village Square building on the southwest corner of Hazlet and Marsh may have seen a setup back there for a driver's ed training course that's used on and off over the years. So right now they're proposing basically the exact same thing behind the Shoptown Shopping Center on the other side of Marsh, because as you know, as this group last year, I guess, approved the MUPUD for Pine Village. So that's the building that Mr. Ars is currently located in. As part of that project, that building is going to be demolished, so they won't have a home. Thankfully, they found a spot on the other side of Marsh, and we're happy to keep them in the township. So the training course consists of pavement striping and traffic cones. Really, it's set up as needed and removed when not in use. So right now you've got the overhead of this parcel. So the gas station's at the corner, and that's going to be demolished here soon as well. Blondie's, there's a medical building just to the west of Rite Aid, but this shopping center is Rite Aid, and there's a variety of other tenants. There's 2 buildings, one here. And then Mr. Ars is taking this space in the very back southeast corner of the shopping center. For those of you that lived here quite a while, there was a carpet store when I first moved here in 2006. And then at one point there was a dog training academy in that space. A little easier to see on the air photo. It is all on one parcel. So this is the parcel ringed in red. Here you see the shopping center. The Mr. Ars would take the space back here in the lower right-hand corner, and then the driver's ed training course would be set up back in this area. So really just some miscellaneous comments, because this is a little bit different from some of the larger, more complex development projects we usually see. So in this case, the special use permit review criteria is used from the ordinance, just the generic special use permit review criteria. The fire department has approved the proposal. There are no concerns raised by planning or building staff. I spoke to the property owner and the management company, that is Martin Commercial. They have both granted their approval of the request. As you know, in the staff materials, the applicant's requesting a decision the same night. Your bylaws do not allow you to make a decision the same night, and typically that is the best course of action. In this case, I did talk to the applicant ahead of time. It's a project that's fairly minor in nature. If you do decide to make a decision tonight, I've provided a motion to suspend that bylaw that would allow you to make a decision. It doesn't happen often, and certainly it's your choice depending on the scope of this project if you choose to do that, but the idea was to have you at least be prepared. So I provided a motion, and then there is a resolution to approve in the meeting packet. That's all I've got. Let's get the applicant is on here, and he may want to fill you in. You'll notice there was a cover letter that went into pretty good detail about how the use is proposed.
Thank you, Peter. And did we get him into the Zoom meeting?
I'm looking. It looks like I have some emails here.
We're trying, but he is not in as of yet, sir.
Okay, well, sorry about that.
We'll give him another minute or two here.
I'm gonna text him he just texted me, sorry. I was emailing him at first and now we're texting, so. He's gonna call in on the line.
Okay, thanks, Amber.
So heads up, Director Geeby, he's coming your way.
Thank you. We're watching for him.
while we wait, we could probably have public comment now as we're working to get our applicant into the meeting here. So I guess let's go ahead and we'll move on to public comment. If anyone wishes to speak at this time and you are in our Zoom meeting, you can feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, you can give us a call at 517-349-1232. And remember that to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Give us your name and address at the top of your remarks. And for this public hearing, public comment, you must speak to the topic at hand. So with that, we'll go ahead and open things up for public remarks.
I'm not seeing anyone, and we do have the applicant on now.
Anyone else calling, Director Geeves?
You have no telephone calls, sir.
All right, then we'll go ahead and close public remarks and we'll come back to applicant time. So let's go ahead and get Mr. Redoughty on the phone, please.
Jason, you're muted by default, so
Oh,
be sure to
okay.
check. Yeah,
There, I'm unmuted.
Welcome. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, guys. Sorry, I think I had some technical difficulties because I was logged in under my regular Zoom account. So thank you, Mr. Steven helped me out a lot.
So we are
thank
ready
you.
for you. If you can give us your presentation, please.
Yeah, so it's pretty quick and easy. We've been Jason Redoughty for Mr. R's Driving School 1575 Hazlitt Road. We've been operating in the township for about 25 years, doing driver education and road tests for the state of Michigan. The road test component requires some parking lot maneuvers to test one's students' parking lot abilities before they're released on the road to get tested to get their license. We've have been using the space behind 1673 Hazlitt Road in the Hazlitt Village Square Shopping Center for the last 17-ish years. And of course, as you guys know, because you milked it through the process of that building getting sold. So we had to move. And after a lot of searching and really wanting to stay in the township as well, there's not a lot of unused parking lots that go along with offices that are for rent. So we found a great new home not too far away across the street, somewhat in the Shoptown Plaza in downtown Hazlitt, around the back where the Good Dog Training used to be. The original building on that site, as I understand, about 50 years ago, and a laundromat. So one of the big reasons that the site was great for us is because just immediately south of the building, there is a unused for any purpose parking area, which would be perfect to conduct the parking lot portion of our road test skills. I think in the packet, it states the dimensions, which I'll have to refer to it, something like 70 by 30 of lines on the pavement. And then when tests are happening, we bring cones out to set on those lines. When they are set out, there is enough room for cars to go through unencumbered by anyone doing a test. So and we have obviously the owner has approved this use of that area. Yeah, 70 feet long by 35 feet wide. And we've been doing it across the street without any incident in a actually much more precarious location without room for anyone to get around. It was on the back side of the building, and the building was used less and less over the years. But this one's even better in my view, and hopefully your view too, because there is enough room for cars to go through even when a test is taking place. And obviously I'll stick around to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll go ahead and move on to Planning Commission discussion. Any Planning Commissioners wishing to discuss this topic? Commissioner Primo.
My question to the applicant is, what is your sense of urgency about us approving it today?
Sure. So we had a hard out of our previous building and have been out of business since the 15th of February. And so we're anxious to get revenue back in the door, and community members are anxious to take the road test. We have a long list of people that are excited about doing business with us. And because there's zero permanent structures and zero impedance of anything that's already happening, I thought it would be a no-brainer for you guys to just kind of discuss and have a once over. And I'm hoping that it won't be a hard decision, that the jury will come back very quickly, hopefully.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner McConnell.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's more of a comment than a question, just relating back to the construction of the MSU Lake Lansing pathway. I saw last week that that phase 3 is scheduled to come along that area, and it's great to see that kind of development going on. You know, hopefully at some point there will be retail establishments, maybe dining and other things, Bonnie's Barn, whatever. But the more we bring attention to that area and its potential for development, I think the better.
Commissioner Cordell.
I'm in favor of the nature of this project. I guess I would just like to verify. I'm looking at an aerial picture that was included in our packet, and the entrance is on the south side of that building, the that would be southeast corner. Is that correct?
Yes.
And about how many feet away? There's a lighter area, is that correct, Peter, that is indicated of where this would be located?
Yeah, there's a diagram in the application materials, not on that plan, that show the general layout. It's pretty
Right.
much just behind the building there.
Okay, but it doesn't, I mean, I imagine you looked into it not conflicting with anyone pulling in or out of a parking spot. There's sufficient distance.
Yeah, we've looked, I looked at it, the fire inspector looked at it, had a building inspector look at it. And if there is an issue, I mean, they can move them, and they are, if they've had to, the cones can go right over if there is an emergency.
Okay, yeah, that was just my one concern. Having had a child go through this process, I've seen the setup, and it is very temporary in nature. They can set it up and then take it down. I see no problems as long as that issue of pulling in and pulling out is sufficient distance from where this would be. And I would also be in favor, because of its simplicity, that it would be decided tonight.
Anyone else wishing to address the topic? Okay. So the one thing that kind of struck me as odd is I went and did a site visit on, gosh, it must have been Saturday evening, because I'd never been behind this particular building. And I noticed that there were cones and stripes already there. And so I guess to the applicant, I would ask, are you jumping the gun on us, or is this just in preparation of what you hope to be a yes tonight?
Yeah, so we just wanted to kind of make sure to answer the questions for ourselves that Ms. Cordell was asking, to make sure that where we had planned it, that when in fact it was set up, that there would be room and plenty of room and no interference with anybody. So it's kind of just a test run for us to make sure that it was going to be not encumbering any other things that were happening.
So generally, I am supportive of this proposal. I have been opposed to the suspension of bylaws in the past, on a couple of different projects that because it gives us time to consider some of the intricacies, and it gives us time to hear from many members of the public who are hearing about it for the first time at our first discussion on the topic. In this case, I think I will likely support suspending our bylaws. I do feel it's prudent for at least me to reiterate my point, which is that this is not something we do very often. It's not something we take lightly, because we take our deliberative decisions very seriously. So while I imagine that that I'll be supportive of the motion this evening, it's not something that we should take lightly, and I know we don't. Any other discussion on this topic at this time? Seeing none, do we have a motion? Commissioner Bloomer.
I would make a motion to suspend our bylaws with respect to this petition and approve the petition for immediate use by the petitioner.
Okay, I think we need to do that as two motions, just for the
All right,
sake
my first
of.
motion then is a motion to suspend our bylaws and allow for immediate consideration and approval.
All right, do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Primo. All right, any other discussion on that topic? All right, we will go ahead and take a roll call vote then. Commissioner McConnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Primo,
Yes.
Commissioner Cordell,
Yes.
Commissioner Shrewsbury,
Yes.
Commissioner Bloomer,
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder,
Yes.
Commissioner Trezise,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Motion carries. All right, so our bylaws have been suspended, which means that we can indeed consider this tonight. So at this point, we will entertain a motion for consideration of the item. Moved by Commissioner Cordell. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Shrewsbury. Any further discussion on the main motion? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote. Commissioner McConnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Primo,
Yes.
Commissioner Cordell,
Yes.
Commissioner Shrewsbury,
Yes.
Commissioner Bloomer,
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder,
Yes.
Commissioner Trezise,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Motion carries. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Redouty. We appreciate your being here, and go teach some kids how to drive.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys and how awesome you make the township to live in. I've born and raised here and been in business here for a long time, and really appreciate how well you guys do your job.
I think while I don't necessarily always speak on behalf of the entire commission, we're pleased that you decided to stay in Meridian Township.
Awesome. It's good to hear. Thank you guys again.
All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:23 p.m. And we'll move on then to our next agenda item, which is unfinished business. So 7A, rezoning number 21020, Martin Investment Properties to rezone approximately 6 acres, 3 parcels located on the north side of Jolly Road, east of Kansas Road, from industrial I and RA single family medium density to PO professional and office. And we'll go ahead and turn things over to Principal Planner Menser for a brief introduction. Reintroduction, I suppose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on let's see, page 27 of the packet is a staff memo just outlining the information for this item. And at the last meeting, the straw poll revealed the Planning Commission sounded like there was support for rezoning the Midwest Power parcel at 2446 Jolly, but not to rezone the 2 parcels to the north, and both of those are zoned RA. So what was requested of me was to prepare 2 resolutions. One to recommend approval of that parcel at the Midwest Power parcel to PO that would leave the other 2 as currently zoned, and then a second resolution to recommend denial of the rezoning of all 3 parcels. So I've done that, and those are in your packet. I've provided a motion, 2 different motions for you to consider. Since the last time we talked, I have talked with the applicant's representative, and I know he's on the call, or the property owner's representative, and they are on the call here. If you have any further questions from them, there's nothing really new to share that didn't have any new information or a route to, I guess, change anything that's been discussed so far.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. All right, any discussion from Planning Commission members at this time? Commissioner Bloomer.
As I recall, the issue before us now is whether the petitioner is willing to accept a reduced parcel as part of its proposal. Otherwise, it would end up being a moot issue before the court if they're before the court, before the commission, if they're going to abandon their request.
We do have the applicant on the line. If you'd like me to promote him to a panelist, answer that question.
Let's go
Right.
ahead and do that. Yes.
All right, Chris, get ready. You're a panelist.
I hope he prepared his Zoom background.
Yep. He looks the same to me.
And you are muted.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Bloomer, for that question. Again, my name is Chris Buck. I'm with Martin Investment Properties, 1111 Michigan Avenue in East Lansing. I do appreciate that question, and I know that that's on the agenda, 2 different motions for consideration. First, I'd really like to thank the Planning Commissioner and the residents that spoke for their time and their questions and suggestions. Our team has taken a lot of notes, and we're taking a lot of the advice and feedback into consideration. Looking at the 2 motions for you to consider, I guess I'd like to just say that the first resolution for a partial rezoning is not our preference, simply because our plan can't be accommodated on the front corner alone. And successful rezoning of just that parcel would then put the existing tenant in a non-conforming use. So I think our preference would be to have you consider the second rezoning for all 3, since that's what would be required for this project to move forward.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner McConnell.
Yeah, thank you. I think I heard in a separate discussion this week that the proposal may be a medical office that's considerably different than a typical professional office, which is what I had in mind when we discussed this before. I don't know if the applicant's representative is prepared to speak to the use that's being proposed there and how it balances with other available medical office. My understanding is it's kind of more than urgent care, but not an overnight facility. Have I got that? If the applicant's interested in discussing that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, the details of what's being proposed are still being formed. I mean, it is going to be a health services, a medical facility. It's probably not too far off from what you're discussing, but as far as just, being in the rezoning circumstance, I think we're really trying to keep this to land use because, again, a lot of the feedback that we received in the last meeting, and what we may need to adjust in order to try to move this project forward may adjust some of the uses. So I'd rather not really divulge too much, because if we need to make a significant amount of adjustments to this property or to the project to make this property work, I don't want to overpromise what types of services might be available there. But I appreciate you bringing that up. I think it is an exciting project, and if we can get the rezoning to go our way, then there will come a time where all of this will be discussed.
That's what they in the business call a tease.
It's not.
All right. So Commissioner Trezise and then Commissioner Cordell.
Yeah, I think I appreciate Mr. Buck's response that at this point, we're looking at land use rezoning. And if we were to change the zoning, it would be for all uses of right, regardless of what they may have in mind down the road. If we had a better proposal or a more concrete proposal for something down the road, we can revisit this. But at this point, I believe we should reject the rezoning based on the incursion into the neighborhood and not knowing what would happen with a rezoning at this time. And I agree with Mr. Buck. Rezoning the front piece from industrial to professional office simply puts that business in a non-conforming use, which really doesn't make a lot of sense for the Planning Commission to do, absent some sort of a request or rationale. So I would support the resolution denying the rezoning.
Commissioner Cordell.
I would echo Commissioner Trezise's comments, because we don't, for rezoning, we don't get project specific. In a few instances, and they're pretty rare, and it's not on the part of the township, but sometimes for rezonings, the applicant hasn't offered conditions for a rezoning, but as it stands now, and I don't know that the applicant is considering that. I am at the point that if they're not just considering a resolution to recommend that single southern lot, I would recommend denial of rezoning the whole 3 parcels.
Any other commissioners wishing to speak on this topic? Okay. Yeah, I am in a similar position as my colleagues. I think that, well, as I thought about it since our last meeting, I do think there is merit to rezoning the southernmost parcel to be in line with the township's master plan, or better in line with the township's master plan. However, I think that can happen at any time, and not necessarily just because we happen to have these parcels in front of us tonight. I also recognize the negative impact that might have should anything befall the business on that parcel, were it to be a non-conforming use after the fact. So to wit, I too would be supportive of the resolution to deny the rezoning in total after further consideration. Anyone else? Seeing none, then we'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Trezise.
I'm not going to read all the whereases, but this is the resolution that the request to rezone 3 parcels on its 21020 to rezone 3 parcels on Jolly Road and Kansas Road from industrial or single family medium density to professional office. And the bottom is now therefore be it resolved, the Planning Commission on the Charter of the Township of Meridian hereby recommends denial of rezoning 21020 to rezone approximately 6 acres, 3 parcels located on the north side of Jolly Road, east of Kansas Road, from industrial and RA single family medium density to PO professional office.
It looks like it's supported by Commissioner Primo. I just want to clarify that to simplify that we are moving to adopt the resolution recommending denial of rezoning number 21020. Just to because that was a lot in there.
Yeah, well, right, 21020 as presented. Yes. We're rejecting.
Thank you, Commissioner Primo.
I just want us to be clear that a yes vote is a vote for denial.
Correct.
It's a little strange to have it that way. But
yeah, always tricky on the denial of resolutions. Any other discussion? Seeing none. All right, Commissioner McConnell.
Yes.
Commissioner Primo.
Yes.
Commissioner Cordell.
Yes.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Yes for denial.
Commissioner Snyder.
Yes.
And Commissioner Trezise.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So your request for rezoning has been denied by the Planning Commission. And of course, this will go on to the Township Board for their final approval or denial. So thank you for joining us, Mr. Buck. We appreciate your coming by.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I wanted to point out to everybody that because I know there's some people watching from home on this issue, their board will consider this at their April 13 meeting. So same process, except we'll be in front of the Township Board. You will not receive a letter from me ahead of that meeting, so please mark your calendars for that.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on then to agenda item 7B, unfinished business, special use permit number 21011, Lansing Mart Associates LLC, to excavate approximately 23,813 cubic feet, or approximately 881 cubic yards of soil from the floodplain to construct a retention pond at 2020 Grand River Avenue that will serve several commercial properties in the surrounding areas. We'll hand things back off to Peter for a quick intro.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing really new to report. The project's as explained last time. The only thing that I wanted to point out was the wetland. We did have the wetland consultant out. The applicant paid for they had paid before, but it was, I think when they first brought the wetland verification to us, there was 2 feet of snow on the ground. So we had the wetland consultant on the site last week. They verified the location of the wetlands. The proposed work is not located in a regulated wetland or the wetland setback. So I did include, period. That's what happened there. I did include a couple conditions here just to ensure, I guess, that everything goes smoothly on site. One of which is the applicant or condition on approval from the Department of Environment, Environment, Great Lakes and Energy for the work in the floodplain. Typically, we see these applications often when they already have that Eagle permit. In this case, they don't have it yet. I don't think that I think they will get the permit. It's just a matter of time. The state must be a little slower than us in this case. So condition on that, condition on having those wetland boundaries and setbacks actually physically marked on the site. So they'll do that with staking, and that'll be verified by probably someone from our engineering crew when they're on site doing because they'll have to get a soil erosion sedimentation control permit. And that's, if you see the black, what is that stuff called?
Silt fencing.
Silt fencing, thank you. If you see that stuff around, that's the result of a soil erosion sedimentation control permit. So we'll have people on site checking that that's up, but also checking that no excavations taking place in the wetland. Also, the excavated materials are not placed in the floodplain because it's basically all floodplain in that area, or in the wetlands or in any wetland setback. My understanding from the applicant is it's going to be trucked off site. So I've included those conditions along with other more technical conditions that you see more often in the resolution that's attached.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. And as we'll go ahead and move to Planning Commission discussion. I see Commissioner Cordell.
Yes, thank you. I noticed in the staff report, there's a reference to detention pond, but in the resolution, it's calling it a retention pond. Are they interchangeable?
What I learned from an engineer is no, they are not. The correct word is retention. I tried to use retention. Sometimes I guess I messed up there, but the intent was retention. And I apologize for that error.
Okay, no problem. So the resolution is the correct, uses the correct term.
Yes, and don't ask me to explain the difference. I think one is holding water versus permanent. It's more about whether it's permanent or not.
Gotcha. Yeah, I kind of a little muddy on it. Excuse the pun.
Can we insert a clause requiring them to stack it with?
Think of the words detain and retain.
Right. Commissioner Bloomer, what was that you were saying?
I was saying, can we insert a clause requiring them to stock it with bass?
I did have a question, Peter, about the second condition that you were describing, about not requiring, may not occur in the 20-foot natural vegetation strip without a variance from the ZBA. Right. Is that, as someone with a vested interest in the agenda of the ZBA, is that something that's likely to happen? No, not at all. And it's really, I just wanted to have something in, when I put these together, I'm really just trying to think of how can we best protect the township in any given scenario. I don't expect there to be any variance. Just so you all know, when we do, when work is proposed adjacent to a wetland, we have the first 20 feet closest to the wetland is called the natural vegetation strip. And you just can't do anything in that area at all. No excavation, no structures. And the same is true for the second 20 feet away from the wetland. However, in some cases, we do allow minor grading as long as it's put back the way it was.
So it's not unexpected that there may be some grading in that area as long as it's put back to exactly the way it was before. So we're especially interested in protecting that first 20 feet in this instance. I think this was put here more as a reminder to the applicant than anything that can't happen, and that's the not punishment, but that there's a separate process to go through if you are even considering any kind of grading in that area.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion on this topic. Don't all jump at once. Commissioner Bloomer.
I make a motion to approve the special use permit for item 21011, Lansing Mart Associates.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Snyder. Any other discussion on the topic? Commissioner McConnell. You're muted, Bill.
Sorry, I apologize. At the last meeting, I struggled a bit with the electronic packet, and these packets are wonderful. They're everything you could ask for in an electronic packet, but it's not always easy to make your way through it in the heat of the moment. First, a comment. I did go back and look at the March 8th packet, and in the letter from LSG Engineers of February 12th, they talk about detention, and those terms get used differently in different parts of this application. So the confusion is understandable. My personal take is that if any basin that you build is going to detain, it's going to slow it down, and some of them are going to retain a bit. So that's how I kind of understand detention and retention. I also noticed in the application several mentions by the applicant about the quality of the water that would be improved through the construction of this basin, this first flush basin. And I understand from a lot of the engineering drawings how water will be detained. You dig a hole and the water slows down and it's on its way out. But it wasn't clear to me how the water quality would be improved. And so as I dug down a little bit deeper, it seems that the drain commissioner talks a little bit in the letter about final approval of the site plan is conditional on, there's a list of 5 things, addition of LID elements to control volume. Additional trees could comply with the requirement. And I guess my question is that condition by the drain commissioner intended to address the water quality issue, or are there other aspects of the basin that are being proposed that could accomplish that?
Well, if you are all on board, that is definitely outside my area of expertise, but the applicant, the engineer for the applicant is on the call if you're interested in hearing from her.
Yeah, I see she's raising her hand. Let's go ahead and bring.
Okay, Michelle Shoemaker, I guess it's a promotion, right, to the panel. You wouldn't mind answering the question. And please introduce yourself and provide your address for the record.
Okay, this is Michelle Shoemaker with LSG Engineers and Surveyors, address 3135 Pine Tree Road, Lansing, Michigan, 48911. Whereas has been mentioned, the engineer for the applicant. And I'm going to try to answer your questions here. First question was detention and retention. Detention usually refers to the water is being slowed down. It'll still be outlet sometime, and that's what we're doing here. The water will still go into the Okemos drain, which runs behind the large Best Buy building. Retention usually means there's no outlet from that pond. And so the only way water would get out is infiltration or evaporation or something like that. And that is not what we had proposed here. Hopefully that answers that question. If not, let me know. And then as far as the water quality issue, what the Ingham County Drain Commissioner's Office has asked for with water quality, by having that pond there and having time for the water to sit in the detention pond before it leaves the pond and goes into the drain, that gives time for things like oil or grit that might accumulate on the parking lot and go through the storm system to settle out in the basin and not end up in the drain or end up to a lesser extent. And then obviously if necessary down the road, the first flush basin can be cleaned out and of those items and prevent them from getting to the drain. Hopefully that answers things. If not, please let me know.
Okay, Commissioner McConnell.
Yeah, I guess my specific question is about how the basin would be vegetated. As I visit other stormwater basins that have been installed in the township recently and longer, they seem to be mainly turf that's mowed. I have heard many things about other vegetation that can be planted in such places, or at least along the edges, that provides other aspects of water quality treatment. So when I saw the drain commissioner asking for trees as part of an LID, is that low impact development?
Yes.
That was kind of intended for that purpose?
What we proposed right now is just seeding basically for erosion control, like the first basins you had mentioned. We have not been asked specifically yet to do any wetland plantings or anything like that. We're not specifically in the wetland area, so I'm not sure that wetland plantings would be appropriate. It's something I can take back to the landowner and ask if it's made a requirement.
Thank you. I guess I'd like to offer a very small amendment to the conditions, if I might.
This would be the time for that.
Right, so condition number 8 reads, utility grading and storm drainage plans for the site are subject to the approval of the Director of Public Works and Engineering and shall be completed in accordance with the township engineering, design, and construction standards. And I would propose adding at the end of that, and shall include measures to improve the quality of the water leaving the site. My thought in that, if I might explain, is that if the applicant and the drain commissioner come to...
You can't explain it until you get a second.
Yeah, we need a second in order for that to have discussion on it. Thank you. Do we have a second? Seeing none, the motion fails. Okay, anything else? I would like to propose a friendly amendment as Commissioner, or hopefully will be a friendly amendment, as Commissioner Cordell pointed out. The resolution does say retention, and the applicant has clarified that it is detention. So I would change that one letter where it's included. I believe it was in the first whereas, but I will, yes, the first whereas, third line, first word, to read detention, not retention. Commissioner Cordell.
I understand we're following procedure about Commissioner McConnell's comment, but I would be interested in hearing what his point is. Maybe that is the necessary step to see if a second would be taken.
Okay. Yeah, I think that perhaps as a part of discussion of the main issue here, Commissioner McConnell, you might help to enlighten us as to the need for a possible future amendment to the current motion.
Yeah, thanks. I understand the reluctance of the commission to impose a condition at the last minute that's above and beyond. And maybe it's an issue that we can think about as we look towards revising our ordinances to provide incentives and guidance on future proposals, that when there is a plan to improve water quality as well as retain the water from flooding properties, that's something that we seek to do.
Yeah, I think my hesitancy with the previous motion as discussed was that I was sort of under the impression that this was part of the drain commissioners. I think there's a separate condition in here about getting drain commissioner approval, and so my thought was that that may have already been covered by the drain commissioner's requirements per the letter that you cited in your discussion earlier. So it was not so much that I disagree that we should strive to to clean the water. It was more that I think it may already be a part of the resolution, even if it's, you know, tangentially.
Understood, thanks.
Any other discussion? I don't know if we had resolution on whether the motion maker would consider my letter change a friendly amendment. So I will pose that to Commissioner Bloomer, who I believe made this motion.
I have no objection to your friendly amendment.
Okay. Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote on the motion as presented, as amended, I should say. Commissioner McConnell.
Yes.
Commissioner Primo.
Yes.
Commissioner Cordell.
Yes.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder.
Yes.
Commissioner Trezise.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right, motion carries. Thank you very much to the applicant for coming and answering our questions. Good luck with your excavating. With that said, we'll move on then to agenda item 8A, which is other business MUPUD ordinance. Peter has the fruits of a lot of hard labor on this by both he and the subcommittee. So Peter, if you can, or member of the subcommittee wishes to give an update to start, that'd be fine too. But for now, we'll hand it over to Peter and he can defer out to others.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll start, and please, any other members of the subcommittee, please feel free to join in. Since the last time we've talked, this was discussed at the February 16 meeting. All the other changes seemed to boil down to amenities. So that was the primary focus here. So what I've done, or attempted to do, I don't want to say I accomplished it, was updating that section to divide it into weighted categories. So the idea here is each project feature is worth either 1, 2, or 3 amenities, depending on the size, scale, and value. And when I say value, I mean either financial value, or I guess aesthetic value, or any rendering, any in between on that. So you'll see on, where is it? I gotta get to it. The ordinance is quite long at this point. Page 9 in the ordinance, page 44 in the PDF for the packet of our meeting packet for tonight. Here's where they start. So on the page before that, on page 43 is where the section starts, and you'll see there's some edits to just the standards. So we have requirements and guidelines, and the changes, I'll just recap them from last time, where we require an amenity. There has to be at least 1 amenity. We talked about incorporating 4 amenities in addition to those required to get that density bonus. And let's come back to density. The waivers, every waiver has to have at least 1 amenity related to it, or provided that there's a balance between the two. And then 1 or more amenities must be in each project phase if the project is proposed as phased. So then you get down to number 3, and I just change it to examples of possible amenities, because the group emphasized in the past that we're not trying to create an exhaustive list. You have to pick from this. It's twofold. We're providing a big list, so there's plenty to pick from, but also you're not limited necessarily to this list. So, and I took all the categories out. It was divided into transportation or cultural ends or some other categories. Took all those out, and what I've done is not only just reorganized the amenities that were in the ordinance before, some just outright eliminated. And you may have seen in previous drafts, like underground utilities, it's gone because that's the expectation, right? And I think that was the concern. I mean, I have that concern, and I know it was shared by members of the subcommittee, and I've heard other planning commissioners say it, that things that are expected or things that should be in every project are not amenities. So those were just outright removed. The ones that were left were shuffled into these categories of weights. And I am by no means the arbiter of how many amenities any particular project feature counts as. So that is up for debate. What I'm suggesting in the staff memo is that, and I don't want to take your time to go through all these, but I'm suggesting that now that we have a list here, that maybe we send this back to the subcommittee for one more meeting prior to bringing it back for consideration for a possible zoning amendment. And I say that just to recognize that there's probably more work to be done here. But so let's start on page 44 of the packet. You'll see project features counting as 3 amenities, and we've got 1 through 7. And I stuck with 3 because I thought the idea generally was that we don't need to see that there is probably not one amenity that will take the place, because you need 4 additional to get this density bonus. So I thought, well, 3 of those would be some incredible feature, and then there'd be room for another one. So I tried to keep these to the big ones. So LEED certification or similar is definitely a big expense. It checks a lot of the boxes that are detailed in some of the other amenities further down. Multi-level parking decks or underground parking. The last estimate I heard for underground parking is $30,000 a space. So it's definitely a big cost. And to have that parking on site, underground and not surface lots, certainly is a big feature, desired feature. And then I did have some other ones that I had done some research on. So a minimum of 20% of the total units within the development identified as affordable units. This may need further discussion. The only other project that the township has considered for affordable housing was, and Mark may have to help me here, with the elevation. The board, in approving the elevation project down at Jolly and Okemos, identified, was it 3% of all the total units had to be affordable? And the definition of affordable at any given time is the whatever, I think the 80% of the median salary in a given area. So we have project includes at least 50% of the total gross floor area identified for non-residential uses such as retail, restaurant. That was in response to some comments that were made here about wanting to have some sort of, I guess it's a guarantee that we wouldn't see just residences and not any kind of commercial space. So what this does is gives a leg up to those projects that are planning on including some non-residential space in the development. Vertical mixing of land uses, that was another thing that was discussed a lot by this group. Right now, and you see around the community, we've got projects that are horizontally mixed. And in the traditional sense of mixed use, that doesn't necessarily jive. So this would allow some, definitely also another leg up for projects that are proposing that right out of the gate. Projects including unique high quality architecture and 75% of all facades covered with natural materials such as brick or stone. This is just aesthetics, really. And then a dedicated outdoor gathering space. And in this particular section, I have 1,500 contiguous square feet. I can tell you over the last 4 weeks, I've looked at a lot of MUPUD ordinances from Michigan and around the country, and it's not always by the same name, depending on where you're at. I've seen a lot of different approaches. I haven't seen a scaled point system like this. That doesn't mean it's bad. I just haven't seen an approach like this. But the theme that I tried to go for was starting with, and the outdoor gathering space is what kind of reminded me of this. Starting with one amenity, it's really kind of taking the principal idea and going up in scale as you go up. So right now under this 3 amenity, we've got dedicated outdoor space. We actually have a size to it. We're just designating some sort of function here. Sitting, viewing, dining, accessible to the public. As you go down in amenity number, you'll see that is less. So the first amenity is just a privately maintained courtyard with seating for the public. And number 2 is public outdoor seating plazas that include benches, outdoor seating. So the idea was to go up in scale the more amenities that we're counting as. Same with bicycle parking. The idea is, if you look at number or the category of one amenity, we'll see covered bicycle parking on storage on site. Then you get to number 2, and I think we'll need to clarify this, but it would be that plus individual bicycle lockers or locker banks. And then as you get to number 3, it's those plus, well, I'm not seeing that one. I thought I had a bicycle one in here for number 3, but certainly we could add one. But I think the general idea was to take any given concept, and as you go up, adds to it, and it's worth more. So I'm not going to take much more of your time to go through all of these, but this was my attempt to try to not only designate some sort of weight for each of them, but also to add to the current list that we had. So based on all my research, I just made a big list of any amenity that I saw that seemed reasonable in this context. I think there's a lot of more amenities out there that maybe are more urban areas that might not necessarily be here. We certainly could add more if you'd like, but I figured this would get the discussion going.
Thank you. Anyone else from the subcommittee wish to add anything? Commissioner Cordell.
This is great progress. We certainly appreciate Peter's efforts into being given the time to do the research, and I'm impressed by just creating this whole section. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Snyder.
Can I just get a reminder of who's on the subcommittee?
There's Commissioner Cordell, Primo, and was it McConnell?
Richards.
Richards.
And Amber. Yep, and don't forget
Amber.
Director Clark and
Director
Director
Clark,
Kieselbach.
That's right.
And let me assure you, it's nothing we said that caused Mark to retire.
This was it. You're changing MUPUD, I'm done. Yeah, this was really well done. I like the direction and the categorization. I had 1 or 2 thoughts based on my very brief review of this, and I do think one more stint in the subcommittee might be a good idea, just to get one last stamp of approval. My thoughts were these. I would be concerned to give out the height density bonus if they were all coming from category 1. And so I think we might protect ourselves simply by saying you can't have, they can't all come from that first tier. Just because there's a large windfall to be had from picking a couple of these lower cost items. So I might try to force that to be a little bit more on the investment side to get at least the height bonus. I missed the part about needing them for waivers and then additional for the height bonus. That's terrific. Definitely like that. And then the only one of these that I found that I was curious about was in the 3-point category, the three amenity category, number 4, which is project includes at least 50% of the total gross floor area of the buildings for non-residential uses. So if they were to scale up to a 5-story building from the height bonus, are we now talking about, theoretically, assuming that all the floors are the same, 2.5 floors of non-residential use for that amenity?
That was the intent. Yeah, the idea was that a certain percentage of the building would be non-residential, and certainly not 50. It doesn't have to be 50.
Yeah, I love the spirit of it. I think it's a little more geared toward a 2-story or a 3-story building maybe, as opposed to as they get bigger. So we may need to figure out how, if we want to keep that, how we can scale that from 1 floor to many. Other than that, I think we're definitely on the right path here. Very excited about this. Commissioner Cordell.
I'm sorry, just a quick question. What were, Chair, what were you referring to as first tier? Was that which number of points?
Sorry, the 1 point.
Oh, gotcha.
amenities.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Commissioner McConnell, and then Director Clark.
Yeah, thanks. On the 3 amenity list, a question and a comment. The question has to do with the first one listed for leadership in energy and environmental design certification. I think I heard staff mention that actual certification can be quite expensive. And MSU builds to it's certifiable, but doesn't go through the certification process. And I'm just not sure where in the township that determination would be made that this would qualify for LEED certification if a qualified certifier were to. I don't want to put staff in the position of having to decide whether something is LEED qualified if they're not certified to make that that determination. And the comment is more about the project includes unique high quality architecture and 75% of all facades. And I understand the desire to have more sort of durable building materials and things. But I think at least as important is the issue of how buildings get reused in the future, and how difficult certain building materials are to demolish and reuse, recapture, or how much goes into landfill. This kind of goes back to number 4, which is about the percentage that we were just talking about of non-residential uses. And when we heard some presentations on the Village of Okemos, there was discussion of, well, we'll go ahead and build it as residential, but in a way that could be easily converted to other uses in the future as that market evolves. And I don't know how to capture that in an MUPUD ordinance, but the notion that we're encouraging flexibility so that we don't have to demolish a building every time it doesn't fit our specific requirements today. And if we do that, it's recycled. So if there's any way the committee can address those issues, that'd be great.
Okay, Director Clark.
Thank you. I can quickly just follow up with the LEED certification. So LEED certification has multiple layers. They're like bronze, silver, gold, platinum, I believe are the 4. So the certification itself is a verification. We don't really need to do anything else other than that, because the program, in order for them to be certified at whatever level they choose, that is handled by LEED itself. So basically they would be, in order, you see that little certified sticker on a building, that and whatever level they are, they've prepared that building based on LEED standards. That's why they have that. From my standpoint in this position as economic development, I think we were trying to hit on the issue of having an MUPUD that didn't have any M, that just had residential, right? That we continue to go back to projects where the community is not getting that public. And so we're trying to figure out a way to write in words what exactly or how much of the public space or the non-living space needs to be in a building. We're no experts, so definitely we're looking to the Planning Commission to give us some guidelines of what they think is appropriate. Maybe that is on a scale or by a building size, it should be this much square feet or this % of the building. That's our attempt, is trying to figure out a way to make sure that each developer knows that they should come prepared with their non-residential spaces, and that's going to be a part of the project. I can't speak to facade. That's a planning thing. If I were to be in charge of that position, the whole town would be like Blondie's barn. I would just tell everybody to shiplap everything and keep it simple or something. So as far as facade, I don't know. What I can say though, if we're building this, if we're building a building for mixed use, I would imagine we want it to have some longevity. So I wouldn't think that we would be building it in order to be demolished. I know that it could be, but the idea is that the shell of the building is fine, and that we would be able to find alternative uses inside this mixed use. So I would think that that the demolition isn't necessarily something to be considering when we're going to have this go up. And then my other outside thoughts are, I keep thinking of, oh, is that a good amenity? Is this a good amenity? But I'm hoping that planning commissioners can help the subcommittee really hit what our community members are looking for when they're looking for those communal public spaces. We've talked to developers about pickleball and volleyball and public pools and all of these other kinds of things. What is their community really looking for as far as a great opportunity to have multiple ages come together to use a space? And we can't make all of them make a farmer's market or something, but if we could, if that's what we need is a farmer's market on every four corners to gather people together, then let us know. Thanks.
I don't think we need the competition for marketplace on the green, but but say la vie. All right. Any other thoughts? A lot of good time and effort went into this. So thank you to Peter and the subcommittee for working on this thus far. I think, I think if we could have this buttoned up one more meeting, perhaps of the subcommittee, and then let's go ahead and plan on this being on our agenda for the, I think it's April 12th meeting to initiate the zoning amendment. And, the good news is that, this is going to go to the board for their input as well. And so they'll see the list of amenities, and I'm sure that will kickstart a number of discussions at their level as well, to augment the work that's already been done. So thank you to the folks who've been working hard on this. One more meeting, and we'll get this on to the next step. So
Thank you.
All right. Anything else on that topic before we close? Going once, going twice. All right. Next up is agenda item 9A, Township Board update. Peter, what have you got for us? Oh, you're muted now.
I've got two screens and I'm trying to move stuff around. It's just sometimes it gets a little more complicated than it should. Okay, so the board that we met last on, or you met, I'm here too, but February 8th, and it's March, geez. We met on March 8th. The board met on March 16. They discussed a number of items, planning related items. Really, there were none. I will update you on recreational marijuana really quickly because that is definitely a topic that is, I'm sure, on your minds. They really made no specific advances on that topic thus far. There was a lot of discussion. There's a lot of discussion about whether they're going to include that in a future public survey, and certainly whether or not this policy has a future here in the township. There were no big decisions made. So it's on the agenda for their April 13 meeting to discuss further, and maybe you'll see some sort of conclusion or at least a direction at that point, but I just don't know yet. So if and when that happens, I'll definitely keep you all updated. I have, our chair reached out to the supervisor about having a meeting at some point prior to maybe a public hearing happening on that topic. So I'm certainly keeping my ears and eyes open for that opportunity when it does come up. But that was the board meeting thus far. At our next meeting on the 13th, we'll have the items that were discussed tonight. So we'll have the Martin rezoning at Kansas and Jolly. The special use permit for the Lansing Mart is done because that was decided by you tonight. And then we'll also have that zoning amendment that you recommended approval of, the car dealerships amendment. So that'll be on the board's agenda next time. So we'll have more to talk about next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Peter? All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to liaison reports then. Anyone wishing to report from their committee assignments? Commissioner Primo.
I can just tell you that the BRA committee met, and the primary thing that we did was elect officers for the year, and the slate of officers that has been serving was confirmed.
Right? Anyone else? Commissioner Snyder.
The Transportation Committee met March 18th. So yeah, just last week. Sorry, I can't keep track of time anymore. Like I just can't. So they passed a resolution. That was the first part of their agenda to apply for a grant to get some funding to cover some of the expense of the MSU to Lake Lansing Pathway Phase 3. So that resolution passed. That was in the amount of $300,000. But then the bulk of their discussion last week, which I believe, and anybody with authority can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is something that would probably come back to the Planning Commission. They spoke a lot about the Pathway Master Plan, and I believe making some changes to that, amendments to that. So, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but they identified some areas of concern on the map, places that are currently like gaps between paths, places where the shoulder isn't wide enough to accommodate pedestrians. Commissioners also identified several areas that provide opportunities for pathway expansion throughout the township. So in addition to the gaps, they're identifying places where we could have paths that we don't. And then the emphasis on amending the Pathway Master Plan was driven, I believe, in part by the notion that if it's on the master plan, then developers have to comply with that as they're developing and incorporate these paths, these new pathways as they're creating, as they're developing their plans. So so that seemed to be a lot of the emphasis in the meeting, you know, getting it on the plan so that it would be incorporated when developers develop. And Director Perry noted that he would be meeting with all of the commissions to discuss the proposed amendments. He mentioned the possibility of meeting with us on May 10th. And I know that I think it was in our last meeting, I think it may have been Commissioner Cordell had mentioned wanting to meet with Director Perry anyway about the repaving of Grand River, I think in the spring of 2022. So that's basically it.
Thank you. Yeah, I imagine they're looking to weigh in on the master plan, their portion of the pathways portion of the master plan before we crack it open again next year. So it makes total sense that they're getting a jump on that. Commissioner Cordell.
The Corridor Improvement Authority will have their meeting this Wednesday. Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend, but maybe Director Clark would like to go into more detail, but the CIA is planning on supporting the form-based code, and they are looking at submitting a letter to that effect.
Excellent.
Do you want more details, or do you want me to wait for the very well-written letter?
I'm sure we'll be seeing it in our packet next time around.
Yes, yes.
So we'll live in suspense until then.
Right. Anyway, I wanted to let you know that since they're only meeting every other month, they some things get drawn out like this, but they are favorable on that.
Wonderful. Yeah, I know we do still have that as an outstanding item to get those materials over to the board, and actually it may be a blessing in disguise since the letter is coming this week. Maybe that's a good impetus to get that material together as well. So we'll be looking to move on a couple of big items over the next few weeks here. And then I'll go ahead next. I was unable to meet with the ZBA at our March 10th meeting. Sounds like they did consider one case, and probably was not as pithy or full of mirth without me. But you know, I'll let those that attended to present on that. But the meeting on the 24th was canceled for lack of business. So we'll be maybe meeting again middle of April. And then I do just want to take a quick moment to recognize Director Kieselbach, as was mentioned by Commissioner Primo earlier. Director Kieselbach has announced that 41 years is quite enough working for the township, and he'll be taking a well-earned retirement in the coming months. And I know that, you know, that we all appreciate the incredibly hard work that you've done for us and for the township. And we certainly wish you the best. And we'll likely be saying that again over the next few months as you prepare to move on. So thank you from me for sure, and I think from all of us for the hard work that you've done, and we certainly hope that you're moving on to better things here.
Just take a minute to thank everyone now. I won't my last time is at the end of May, so we do have a few more months, but it's been a pleasure working with the Planning Commission over many years, and you can understand we've seen a lot of different people come through, but it's always been a good body to work with for the township.
Thank you. Any other items?
I just might warn you, Mark, that retirement is an absolute misnomer. You will find that you are busier in retirement than you have. You'll wish you could go back to work some days.
All righty, very good. Well, we will go ahead and move on to project updates, which is agenda item number 10. New applications, we have one, our new rezoning application for number 21021 for New China of Michigan. That's over back behind Whole Foods, I believe. Site plans received, none. Site plans approved, none. So it brings us to our last opportunity for public remarks. We appear not to have any public in our Zoom meeting, so if you'd like to join us, you're more than welcome to and raise your hand. Otherwise, you can give us a call at 517-349-1232.
I'm hearing no telephone calls, sir.
All right, too bad. All right, we'll go ahead and close public remarks then and move on to adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Oh, before we do that, I will mention, I think I mentioned this to Commissioner Trezise and to Peter. My wife is expecting, and we are due April 20th. So coming up very, very soon here. So while I anticipate that I will be at the next meeting, which is April 12th, if anything were to happen and she and our new son is to come early, then I may not be with you on the 12th. But that would be about 8 days early. Either way, I will almost certainly not be here for the April 26th meeting, and I will leave you in Commissioner Trezise's capable hands as chair. So I will hopefully be back by our first meeting in May at the very latest. So, Commissioner Primo.
April 12th just happens to be the day that I complete my 47th trip around the sun. So depending on what my family has planned, I may or may not be here.
Okay. Well, if he decides to
I said 47th. That's wishful thinking.
I heard
I meant
that.
74th. Let's. I'm dyslexic here.
All right. Any other announcements for the good and cause? All right, then we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Primo, any seconds? Commissioner Trezise. All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
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 Opposed? And we stand adjourned at 8:24 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you next time. And it's 3 weeks. 3 weeks this time because we've got an extra week here. So we'll see you on the 12th.
Wish your family well.
Thank you.
Good night.
And to you all as well.